It's investment in time. It's an investment in money. And I just got to my point when I don't want to be 70 years old and regret doing it.
I think that's the best investment.
I mean, succeed. I want to
I
succeed.
I, w- I would
But if I
say,
fail, at least I'm going to sit there and said, you know what? I went and I did it.
We help people with ideas get them to revenue.
hey, I'm Peter Draculich. This is another episode of 52 Lunch. Today, I have Kyle Fraunfelter with me to talk about everyday ingenuities and a product that he developed and designed. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. So I'm going to kind of just get into it. You know, everybody knows that we help inventors and entrepreneurs bring ideas to market.
Yep.
Let's get the audience up to speed with your idea, the origin of where the idea started and what is it?
Yeah, actually, the origin came out of aggravation. Um, Whenever I go to a closet,
Uh-huh.
I go to pull out a shirt or some kind of garment, I always have to iron it or dry clean it. And I figured out that there has to be a better way, right? There had to be a new version of a hanger that actually kept my garments nice and taut where they won't crease or they won't wrinkle.
So like in that situation where I have all my shirts and I keep moving from one side to the other,
Yep.
and I've compacted them all instead of having that space, right, they get that extra crease now.
Yep.
Even though they're ironed, I've got to always like either steam them out or iron them again.
Yeah, that's correct. And, especially when you're in a hurry, right?
Yep.
And, because my lifestyle, usually I'm in a hurry and people
Yeah.
are yelling at me, come on, we got to go. I mean, the last thing I want to do is iron. I don't know anybody that likes ironing their dry clean or, steaming.
Right.
Right. So I find myself a lot of times pulling them out and getting frustrated, throwing them on the floor and going to the next strip
Wow.
to see if
Okay.
and usually 6 times out of 10, something's wrong with them that require an iron.
So I could feel the next question everybody's asking.
Right.
What's the solution? Because we all have that problem.
Yeah. So the solution is a configurable hanger, right? The product's name is the Shape Hanger,
Shape
right?
hanger. Okay.
So it's a hanger that you can shape.
So the
Right.
company's everyday ingenuity.
Everyday ingenuities.
And the
The
product is
Shape.
called Shape Hanger.
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're going to have more products down the road.
So you brought up a question that I was thinking you were going to ask later. So yeah, I plan on having a product line and
Okay.
variants of this, right?
Cool.
And for different purposes, right? So a lot of times, I've used the Shape Hanger to hang my son's lacrosse equipment on. So I would configure the hanger and put the shoulder pads on, right, and then the arm things, right, and then the gloves. So they're not sitting on the floor, right, and they're airing out. So I could hang them in the closet. So there's many purposes for them.
Alex, can you pass us the one that you have there? I see it's got a dress on it.
Yeah.
Because I want to show the configuration so everyone understands it. I love this idea because I had the same problem. You know, I iron shirts. I have a multitude of them. So
So the idea was, so the hanger it comes like this.
okay.
Right?
So a set of 3.
Yep, a set of 3.
They're shapeable wires.
So if you look at this dress, it's a hanger that actually is shaped to this dress, so it actually hangs. So go ahead,
Yeah.
push on the side, right?
Yeah.
So if we go like this,
It's-
look, it springs
Well,
right
it hangs right back.
Yep. So the idea here is,
And I like that it's all on the seams here. So again, the wires mimic the shoulder. So again, I've got sweaters that,
Right.
you pull it off hanger and you got, is that what they call it?
hanger humps.
Hanger humps.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I didn't know there was a term for it. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So you can actually follow the silhouette and the curves of whatever garment you have, right?
And you
So
can hang this forever and it's
you
not
can
gonna
hang it
wrinkle.
forever, right? Actually, on the way in, I just threw this in the back of the SUV, just laid it flat, and things were moving around because my son was driving in, and
That's
they
safe.
were kind of driving reckless.
Yeah.
This thing was sliding around, right? And it kept its shape. The other cool thing about it, right, and this happened to be during the design process and the engineering process, we wanted to have a swivel.
Yeah.
Right?
Love the swivel
head,
hook.
right? Because a lot of times, when you go and you hang something on the back of the door,
Yep.
right, with this fixed hanger, kind of twist, right? So this can actually,
Great. Yeah. I hate fixed
yeah.
hooks because I hang everything on the back of the door.
The other thing too we did was we put a little
I
hook
noticed
in.
that. You got a little extra hook. What's that
We
for?
got a hook there. So you could actually have another garment, like such. Of course, there's an example here.
So
that
if you're
we've done,
traveling,
right? So you could hang it like that.
gotcha. So
Right?
if you're traveling, there's your outfit for whatever you're going to.
That's
do
correct.
that. Yeah.
And there's many products out there that actually make it so when you can have the actual holes for the hooks, and then you actually lay it down or lay it vertical, and then it makes more room
Wow.
in your closet.
Okay.
The other thing too is like this. I wanted this to go up and down too,
Mhm.
right? So again, with my son's helmet, I made more room by moving this down, or I can move it up. Right?
Okay. So there's some friction there so you can move it up.
That's right, and it'll hold it in place. Right. So
Where was this when my hockey gear was?
well, that's exactly right. That's why my son's lacrosse equipment is perfect. And just to give you an example, and this is the cost savings then, right? This thing has been dry cleaned. Okay.
Yeah.
This was in my closet, and actually, I can just pull it up
Yeah.
quick,
Pick it up.
right? And actually, you could see here
Yeah. You can see the creases.
creases.
Yeah. I mean,
This was,
that's what my shirt looks like in a typical, like after I got it back from the dry cleaning. I had a different closet downstairs, but then I have to go get one. And even then, I don't care. As soon as you start moving them around, as soon as you get like a humid day in your house, it's going to start getting that crease.
yeah. And the thing about it is, I paid to have these pressed, right? So so when I see this, I'm like, oh, I paid to have this pressed, and I got to iron it.
So we're going to jump around a little bit in this podcast but look at when we were talking, you brought up a point that I didn't even think of. This is like premium. I would call it premium laundry service. So two things you taught me before the podcast, I'm going to bring them up so we can talk about it, is that the shape hanger, I always assumed that, we're going to have to reshape the hanger for every time we get the garments in. You corrected me on that. This is
Set it and forget it.
set it and forget it. So you always know that that's your dress, your garment, whatever you're putting on there.
Mhm.
How much, and then you said, hey, like dry cleaning. And then we talked about why wouldn't dry cleaners charge a premium service to have shirts that wouldn't get unpressed?
Mhm.
You'd bring them back instead of bringing them in that laundry bag. You bring them back on these the shape hanger,
That's right.
so that you can, first of all, I think the laundry services or the dry cleaners would lose less clothing that way.
Absolutely.
They'd put it off, they'd put it back on,
Yeah.
and now it's pressed and it stays
And
pressed.
it stays
Which
that
is
way.
really what is the missing link here.
It is.
That's brilliant. That's
It's just it's another application of it, with regards to, being able to reuse it. Because once you shape it,
Yeah.
I don't change, my body shape doesn't change all that often,
right.
right? So, I mean, once I've kind of fit it, and all I do is kind of hold it up to me, and okay, my shoulders are this broad, and kind of just pull,
And I'm sure once you do one, you do
you
them
do
all.
one, and I could put any shirt on it.
Well, look, I can feel a lot of people out there going, well, I got enough hangers. What do I need another hanger for?
Right.
I mean, does this replace every hanger in your house?
It doesn't, right? But all the clothes that you wear, on a weekly basis,
Mhm.
right? Or the ones that, when you're going to go out for the night and you want to make sure that it looks nice, and, you don't have to, iron it, or
Because you're never
Well,
rushing when you go out for a dinner date or
I always am.
yeah, no, it's
Just
yeah.
being sarcastic,
I think
yeah.
I'm being sarcastic. Yeah, okay, I agree. That makes a lot of sense.
It's kind of funny. I was thinking about it, right? And, what problem does it solve? For me, right? I'm pretty high strung and stuff like that. And I get rather irritated really quick, right? And when I'm looking at the shirts
Right.
before I had this,
Mhm.
I get a stress spike. I get a spike in stress, right? Because everybody's yelling at me, right? And
Well, I've been in the scenario that you described before. Like, you're ready to go,
yeah,
and all of a sudden you pull out the shirt that you thought you were going to wear,
Yeah.
and it's crinkled or it's
Yeah.
creased or it's got like you didn't realize it's folded weird when you're pushing your clothes together. Shirts are for men. And again, I come from the automotive industry where we have to dress up every day. The amount of shirts that I had in standby that could. I mean, I'd keep them in plastic, but even the plastic didn't help
it doesn't. No.
because yeah, it's for whatever reason, moisture, humidity, just being pressed against another piece of clothing. Or maybe I just didn't, I didn't have a nice double walk-in closet that I could spread my
Well,
shirts.
hold on. My wife has that. I have the small one where I have to cram all this stuff in, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
So
But even then, in your wife's closet, I'm sure it's crammed too.
it is.
Yeah.
It's crammed, and so again, that dress is hers.
Yeah.
So if she wasn't having on that, again, the same thing would happen to her.
Well, I mean, I know part of the trick to not ironing also is to hang your clothes that are damp.
Right.
So if it's shaped already and it's taut,
Yep.
you can probably avoid some ironing on a lot of clothing.
So the other thing too is, avoid ironing altogether. Right. If for whatever reason, right, you put it on right out of the wash or something like that, and they're just out of the dryer or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The great thing about that is, I don't know if you've ever steamed and you're holding it, and the other, when you're pushing on the
Yeah.
steamer, the garment or
Right,
shirt
right.
pushing away from you.
Well, because you got nothing to
You've got
support.
nothing behind it, right? So the way this is, if I hold it, right, I can push on it, and it's still going to stay right there. It's not going to push away from me. So it's like an empty.
I'm just gonna grab one of
It's like
these.
an ironing board.
So okay, so this is the way it comes packaged. We already picked this up, so comes in a set. I can see it is wire folded. Alex, do you have B-roll on this that we can? Okay, good. Yeah. So yeah, I just didn't want to take it apart, but in the video you can show a demonstration. So basically, this is a wire. It's flexible wire.
Yeah, that's a coating on it.
It's got coating on, so you're not
Right.
gonna get the rust stains that you get on those copper.
Snag.
Right, not gonna snag. Okay.
Right.
Wow.
You know,
And dresses,
dresses,
jerseys.
outfits, right?
Yeah.
Top and bottom, right? So again, you could have a top of a matching outfit of your favorite outfit, or maybe you're going out and you have this uniform for women, right, that they like to wear. So they could put a top on, right? And then if they have a skirt, then you could bend it out to be able to hold the
So it
skirt
can hold
on the
both
bottom,
things.
when they're two different pieces.
Everyday ingenuity.
Everyday ingenuity.
That's
I love it.
yeah. I actually really like this. So tell me your background. I mean, what did
Yeah.
what did you do before this? I mean, I know that you've invented this, but
Yeah.
what do you do full time?
Yeah, I'm an engineer
Okay.
by trade.
All right.
And I work for a rather large engineering software company. Pretty large.
But you're automatically programmed to problem solve. Problem.
I am.
Okay.
And I've always is out there trying to solve problems, right? And that's one of the things too is, I see a lot of products out there, and they develop the solution first and try to find a problem.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I find the problem, then develop the solution.
Look at. So, if you're watching this, rewind, pause, mark this little spot up, because look, part of this podcast also is to help other entrepreneurs who are hesitant
Right.
to go through the process. Let's talk about the entrepreneur process. What you just said is the most crucial thing. So you got to find a problem in the market, then create the solution.
That's correct.
If you have the solution and you try and sell,
Then you're trying to find
something
problem.
else,
That doesn't work all the time.
yeah, you cannot do it that way.
Yeah.
Or at least for I would not recommend it that way. Maybe for large companies that works, but you have to spend so much money in educating people about the problem before you can sell your solution. It's better to bring the solution, work on the solution that you see a problem to that the market needs to fix.
Yeah, and the problem's personal to me, right? So that's the thing too. Like, there's many things that that on the everyday or maybe every week that are a hassle to me, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, there has to be a better way of doing this, right? Because I want everything to be easy.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't have time for
Yeah. No, I can't imagine anybody, who wants to pull out an ironing board, get it out, set it up, turn on the iron, wait for that, and then iron. I mean, that's not one of the things I want to do.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just an example. Right. And there's many other things.
And you're probably like me. We got a little bit of ADHD in us. So I turn the iron on and I get sidetracked. I get on a call. I go to work. I come home. The iron is all right.
Still on.
Yeah. Thank God they got the auto shut off.
And then when it comes to that, a lot of times the iron itself is the holes are all
there's
calcium in it.
right. Yeah.
So then when you go to iron
I'm sure you got all that crap on it.
that white stuff spits all over it, and then that goes on the floor.
Yeah. Well, one thing is for sure, we've done way too much ironing in our lives.
That's obvious, right?
No. So go through the process. I mean, I remember when you came in first, you had a wired up, I don't know where you got the wire from or cable or whatever you did. Like, help me understand when you decide you're going to have the problem, what was the first step?
Yeah.
You took?
So my prototype was actually taking a wire hanger, right, and cutting it and then straightening it. But the first problem I had, go ahead.
Tell me.
Yeah. So the first problem I had was where the two wires come together and they're twisted together.
Yeah.
Right. That immediately came undone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not like you could go ahead and make this at home. just say, people can be thinking, oh, well, that's
Right.
that's not anything, innovative,
Yeah.
right? I could just cut my hanger in there, right?
Right.
But then, when the hangers themselves aren't that long,
Yeah.
right? So what I had to do was, cut up another hanger, and I just kind of put that the rubber shrink wrap
Right.
on it, and I just made
Okay,
it
that's
long.
what you did. You bought
That's
you had wire,
I-
then you put the rubber shrink. So I remember you had it coated.
that's
I
right.
just couldn't remember how you
Yeah.
had it
So
coated.
I did that,
Okay.
and I experimented with it, and I was
Wait a minute.
yeah,
You didn't get it right on the first try?
no.
I say that facetiously because,
Yeah.
look, I think a lot of early inventors and entrepreneurs think that, everybody gets it right the first time.
Absolutely not.
And I will ask you, even through our manufacturing process, once you came to us with a prototype
Yep.
or a proof of concept,
Yep.
did we get it right the first time?
We didn't get it right, meaning I was involved in that process, which was great,
Okay.
right? And no, we didn't.
How many
We
tries?
had to go through at least 2 engineering changes,
Okay.
right? And your team was great with that, right? Because it was a collaboration,
Good.
right? And it was great. They came up with some really good ideas. In fact, the plastic originally, the design where the plastic
Mhm.
part of it was going out too far, right? And what that was doing was causing those hanger hops, right? So we
Gotcha.
go, okay, let's pull this back in to give the wire a little more room to form, right? And the other thing,
I remember. So I didn't know why you guys did that. I
Yeah.
saw that and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, that's making it shorter worked. And they're like, yeah, this is the way we're gonna.
that's right.
Okay.
And then we changed the neck, right, to have it more fit like a neck, right? Because when you look at other hangers, and you tie a shirt on it, I always button the top
Right.
button,
Yeah.
and I
So
put it in the thing, right? But a lot of times there's nothing there slopping around. It's
Right.
moving around,
Yep.
right? And hence that's going to
Yeah.
change.
Especially you and I don't have small necks.
That's
So
correct,
yeah.
right? So then the way it's shaped is its shirt is going to move around laterally.
So it's not just an overnight process that you come up with an idea. You work through it. This is what the point I'm making. Again, trying to educate like future entrepreneurs and inventors that like it is a process. I don't think we could have got here, and I appreciate you hearing that it was collaboration because that's exactly what we're trying to do.
It is.
Um,
Yeah, you got a smart team.
I think we do. I think the smartest day I had in this company was when I realized I wasn't the smartest person. I need more people to get the job done and
Yeah.
put the right people in.
Yeah,
the
I
chair.
can't imagine you not being the smartest person.
I could prove to you I'm not the smartest person on any given day without a lot of effort.
Pretty good at what you do. Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's fantastic. I love hearing that, especially about the team because like, look, I see how hard they work, and I know what they're passionate about it.
Yeah.
Like if they weren't passionate about it, I don't think it'd be the same thing. But they are. The key for me was
Yeah.
putting people in place to help you that were passionate about helping you,
Yeah.
passionate about new designs. I love hearing that is exactly what it's supposed to be. It's a journey together that works out to the right product.
Yeah, and it's not just the product and engineering of it, right? It was the marketing side of it,
Yep.
right? It was understanding the logo, what was the name is, going out there and do the market research, right? What is out there that can, is there a hole? Is there a gap I'm filling here?
I am so glad you brought that up because again, I always tell people in the beginning, I interview most people in the beginning and I get to talk to you at the end.
Yep.
I have very little involvement, correct, or in the middle.
Mhm.
And because I look at it this way, you became the CEO of my team.
Okay.
They're there to do what you do, but also feedback and
That's
to
right.
make decisions together. So I'm
Yep.
glad that's exactly what it's
Right.
intended.
It was a collaboration throughout the whole process.
You brought up marketing, and I always tell people, like, especially with like new ideas, people are so fixated on the idea, they forget about the marketing.
Yeah.
And that was one. The marketing is more important in the long run than the product. The product sells itself. But if you don't have the brand, you don't have the logo, you don't have it. You brought up something that I don't normally do, and I like your forward thinking. We're a single brand. We like Shape Hanger would have been the brand.
Mhm.
In your case, we worked on the bigger plan,
That's correct.
Everyday Ingenuities, which is just
I wanted a company name with products underneath it.
yeah. So again, that's again strategy about long term. Talk to me just a little bit about like the marketing side. Like, how did you guys come up with the names? What was that process like?
Yeah. I originally came up with another name, right? It was more obvious. It was called Obvious Ingenuities, right? But I was spelling obvious differently, right?
Yeah.
Because that name already existed. So I forgot what it was. It was OBVI.
Yeah, that's okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's obvious.
It's funny what triggers an
Yeah,
ill brain here.
It's funny.
Hamster
right?
wakes up and we say keywords.
Again, And, we got together and we're like, okay, what's another way of saying that? Right. And I'm like, well, these are things that, are problems for most people that happen every day. They deal with it. Right. And it was like, we have to be able to find better ways of doing this. So then, okay, well, you could be ingenious about it. Right. Because again, everyday innovation was already out there. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not being that innovative, right? That's just rather simple product.
Right.
It's more ingenuity, kind of. I grew up in Pennsylvania in the woods,
Yeah.
so I have a little bit of ingenuity,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a word you'd put in for
Yeah.
that, but uh, so, we,
Jerry rigger.
yeah, we, we came back and forth with that. And that's how we came up with that name. And they did a fantastic job with the logo.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Because I wanted the logo to be, a light bulb, right?
Yeah.
But I wanted to be a different light bulb. I didn't want it to have the filament, right? Because I was like, "Okay, hold on,"
That's
right? Because if you saw what I did with the logo,
yeah.
it was more of an LED, right, with the vertical thing. So if you look inside my logo, there's going to be an E, right, with the I there,
Wow.
right? So
I love
yeah,
when logos have those deeper meanings because
exactly,
that's
correct.
so
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
It's like
Again, because, the regular light bulbs, with the
right.
filaments,
Yeah.
that's been played,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and look at that. That is a huge difference between finding someone on Upwork or Fiverr
Mhm.
that is going to go into some sort of clip art program and make just what they can find.
Sure.
Everything we do, I'm making from scratch. I'm not saying that there isn't changes or some inspiration, but
Mhm.
again, that process, that's really cool to hear. I'm going to look at the logo a little closer
That's right.
because
Yeah, where is it? It's right here.
yeah,
So, yeah, so if you look at it, sure.
yeah,
So that's an E and an I in there,
that's really cool.
right?
That's really cool.
And that's what the new light bulbs with the LEDs look like.
And great colors.
Yeah, the color, your team came up with the colors,
Really. Okay.
right? And, again, it really pops, right? And these are the palettes that they're using today,
Yeah.
right? So it's again, it just pops.
Full explanation on the back.
Yeah.
Another shot at the logo, the 1, 2, 3, so easy to understand.
Mhm.
Yeah. Great packaging too, by the way. This
That
is
again, I when they were telling me about it, I was a little hesitant, right? And I was like, well, I want, I want to see it, right?
yeah.
And, being how it's a package of 3 too,
Well,
right?
it's a package of 3
That's right.
that are and there's like it's trying to package wires on it. Like
That's correct.
that is hard to do without putting them into a bag with circles
Right.
that are tied up, and then you got to unstretch them.
Yeah, and
So
and the wires themselves, I mean, this isn't a small, this is the loop, it's 3 feet long.
yeah, you're going to do a full shirt. You
That's
can do a
correct.
dress. I mean, you
Right.
just showed the size of it. That's
Yeah.
yeah, 3 feet of wiring,
That's right.
and
Yeah, how do you package that? So, yeah, that was your team that came up with that.
yeah. Well,
I
like I said, incredible.
Yeah.
I love it because again, it does need to be packaged, right? And this is just for retail purposes. We want to be able to show this.
Well, it has to kind of say what it is, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. People don't have attention spans nowadays.
Well, I think one of the things I remember the team looking at is that, the market of space-saving hangers, like
Yeah.
those really thin,
Yeah.
they got the flock coating on them.
Yeah.
I hate those. I can't get my
they,
shirt.
they were originally invented, or to solve the hanger hump problem. Or
Yeah, because they don't
Whatever.
slide around.
That's
But
right.
guess what I
Yeah,
can't do?
and they were a little more rounded,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Across the shoulders, but they were also a little broader.
Yeah, I have a problem putting them into the shirt.
Yeah,
Like, by the time I spend hours, or not hours, I spend minutes, like, trying to adjust it so it hangs properly.
Yeah.
I tried those, so that
the
those
friction of it, right? And
Yeah.
they're kind of hard to move on it.
yeah, especially if you're using, like, again, some of my ski gear that, like, just does not move well on that,
Right.
or fleece or,
Yeah.
yeah, no, so in the branding side of this, obviously we did the content creation, all that stuff, that was all part how much I'm assuming that was just as collaborative on your part?
Yeah. First of all, we started off with the accelerator program, which is great because it mapped out every step that we were going to do. Right. And, I had a nice step-by-step stage of what, you guys were doing and what I would be involved in. Right. There were stages where I would be involved in and I'd go away for a little bit. And then you guys call me back in and say, okay, we're at a stage within the accelerator process where we need your input. Right. And, I was fortunate, and we could talk about why I was fortunate and why I picked you guys, that you guys were local to me,
Yeah.
right? Because that was important to me. And I remember telling you a previous story where I had another idea for a product that I went somewhere else, right? That was years ago.
Yeah.
And it didn't pan out very
It's
well.
one of those invention help companies.
It wasn't one of those franchise ones. It was a private one,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
remember you telling me about that.
yeah,
I
and
remember, yeah.
it wasn't local, right? And it just didn't work out very well. And I don't think it worked out very well for many of his customers. So I for the second time around, I did my research, right? Because that
So
first time I
what
kind
made
of
you,
rushed into
what made you make
your
this?
reviews, right? Your podcast, right? And coming in and talking to you guys, that was a big thing, right? The first time around, the conversations were rather quick,
Mhm.
right? He didn't really ask a lot of questions. Didn't really ask requirements and my thoughts about, where I see it fitting in the marketplace. It was more about, oh yeah, okay, you know, I could do something like that. Send me 10 grand and I'll go off and I'll do it.
Yeah.
Right. And it was kind of went away. And I had a graphical rendering of what his output to me was a graphical rendering. And he goes, all right, so here's it is. This is what we're going to go and push to the customers and try to solicit. And I was looking at it, I was like, this doesn't represent anything. How are you going to demonstrate this?
Right.
Right. And you guys just took the approach with your accelerator, again, a product that will go through every stage of development, right? And then marketing and launch.
Well, I think that's just the difference between an inventor versus an entrepreneur. I feel I cater to entrepreneurs because at the end of the day, an entrepreneur needs the product in hand
Yeah.
to go and knock on someone's door with the marketing, branding, and website to be able to deliver it. Like it's just, anybody else's, to me, I feel that's just, they're wasting time and money.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing you guys provided that kind of separated yourself from the others out there is the services, right? It's not just, hey, we helped you with a product, right? And we're going to ship it to you. You guys took it the next step, right? You were able to do the photo shoot, right? You set
Yep.
me up with the launching. You set me up with Shopify. Right? I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Well, look at it. People do ask us all day, like, is it hand holding or is it guidance?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think someone asked me that the other day. I didn't know how to answer. I'm like, I don't know if we hold your hand, but I certainly think we got you. Some of the stuff we can do, some of the stuff we get input from.
Right.
I think our team does not have, we have the pride ego. I think we're very prideful of the work we do, but I don't think we have the ego to tell you this is what, should be done. I think we give you our advice and we have conversations about it, which I think
Yeah. Again, it was a collaboration.
Yeah.
Right. And
that's so
there,
important.
there were many times I'm like, hey, you guys are the experts. Go. Right.
Yeah.
And then there were times if you talk to some other people here, I kind of held my ground a little bit. And,
Yeah, no, look at there's
um,
you're the subject matter expert. Like you know exactly what you're trying to solve, and that's really where it is. Look at collaborative process is the exact word that we're looking for on all fronts. Was there things that we did, or again, was there things that you did that we didn't realize that needed to get done, or was there things that you didn't realize that needed to get done that we had in place in that process?
it's a good question. And I'm sure there was, the thing about it is I can't think of it right now. And the reason why is it probably wasn't significant enough.
Yeah,
Right.
or
So,
got
so
resolved.
yeah, problem was resolved. So we overcame, we adapted.
Yeah.
Right. So,
How much
yeah,
of that is part of the process?
it
It's
is.
everything,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
But again, it was a collaboration.
Yeah.
Right. It was a bunch of smart people in a room, right? Saying, we don't like that. Right. Because one of the things, you know, as a team we came over with when we first got our first prototype,
Mhm.
it wasn't connected at the bottom.
Yeah, because I don't remember yours
It was
being
just two
connected at the
prongs going
bottom.
down. That's right.
And you had the little knobs at the end, you had them flare out, I think,
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
original prototype,
that's
yeah.
correct.
When I
Right.
saw that, I was like, okay.
So what we did was, because I was like, okay, there has to be the lateral integrity
Mhm.
of it. If you put something heavy on it, or something like that, it would collapse.
Right.
Right. So what I did is, wait a second, let's bend it at the bottom and twist it together, right, to kind of give that lateral, integrity and rigidity
Yep.
at the bottom, right. So kind of played around with that, and then we were like, okay, well, let's just make it a loop, right. And that was an example, of your team and myself collaborating together, right.
We were both trying to figure out, is there a better way?
Yeah, there was a better way. There had
Yeah, and so was again, this is what I always warn people when they think they can DIY this type of process. I think when you're inexperienced, you come up with the first solution and you think that's the right solution.
Mhm.
I like to think that we dig a little further.
Yeah.
Is that first solution the right solution? If it's not, what's the next solution?
Yeah.
How do you constantly make it better without going over, I always say that, the longer you take, it's something that kills your profitability, but there's also that balance where a little extra time doesn't hurt.
So, my mindset is time is a killer.
Yeah.
Right? Time will kill anything.
Yeah.
Okay. But you can't rush things either.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, there are times where you have to sit down and think about things. Don't rush it. Don't rush into it.
Right.
Right. And then you make up for it elsewhere.
Yeah.
But time is a killer. You know, you know, paralysis by analysis sometimes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was trained in, I ended up taking a secondary minor. It was production management and bottlenecks, right? As long as things keep flowing, you don't have a problem.
That's correct.
You're going to run into bottlenecks. You're going to run into obstacles. You're going to have to figure out how to overcome those, and you're going to have to move forward.
Yeah. And you may not overcome those sitting there right in the office. You may have to go up like what I did, right? I had to go home and think about it, and
Well, I was going to ask you that. Is there a time where there seemed like a problem that couldn't be solved, that like we hit a wall and then we worked on it? Like, I don't know if that was in your case, but I think it's part of the process. Maybe not a wall that you go, oh my God, this will never get done. But
uh, that's not my mindset. My mindset, there's always a way. There's always a way, right? You just gotta, either lower the requirements, right, or come up with it.
okay, look at that. That's a fantastic answer, because I agree with you. I think mindset is the most important thing if you're going to become an entrepreneur.
Right. Absolutely.
The second thing is, you might have to make some compromises.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Do you feel that there were compromises were made, or were the right compromises?
All the compromises were the right compromises, as far
Okay.
as I'm concerned.
Which I think make the overall product better,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right? So I think compromises might not be the right word here, but
Yeah.
I think that's how everyone feels, right?
Yeah. I just look at experiments, right, and
Experiment.
engineering
Better.
changes, right.
Yeah.
You got to experiment, and you need to get the product in hand.
How many experiments did you do before you came to us?
Ooh.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of funny because I took a flat piece of aluminum,
Uh-huh.
right, and I got like an 8-foot flat piece of aluminum, and I made the hanger out of that, right, because I didn't want. I wasn't necessarily looking at wires right away, right,
Yeah.
because I was like, I need to be a little different from a regular hanger, right, just to kind of show that there's a little more ingenuity to it.
Right.
And I came in and I was like, guys, this is after I met with you. Hey, I think we want to try this, right? And your team looked at it, right? And I left it with them, but they went out and did a cost analysis. I didn't even freaking think of that, right? They went out and say, well, aluminum is more expensive. I was like,
way more.
oh, you're right. Right. So
Yeah.
they brought me full circle back to the wire. Right. And it was the right decision.
So, we spelled out in the accelerator, the margin analysis, how important that is.
Yeah,
And that's a
absolutely.
huge part of the conversation in terms of making decisions.
Yeah. If you don't have a margin, where are you going to go?
Again, that's a huge difference between someone, inventing something to somebody entrepreneuring something.
That's correct.
And so that's a great point there.
You mentioned something before about the changes and getting by them and stuff like that. One of the things also, you got to check your ego, right? There's a lot of times where people are like, if you get it wrong the first time or something like that, people take offense to it, or they get down on themselves, or like, again, their ego gets in the way. Right. And, I was open to changes. I was open to ideas. I was acceptive of failures. I knew we were going to fail sometimes.
It's I'd say it's ego and fear. Everyone fears
Ego and fear of failing.
fear of failure, right? That's probably the biggest one. And that, like, again, that's what you hired us for. I can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could never let somebody fail. I mean, or at least the best of our ability, we've got to move forward.
Right.
I know the compromise that you have to make to succeed sometimes. I always say it's the first step. Let's get the sales quickly. Let's get there. But look, I am so fortunate to have a team of people that can work with you and get through this process, that, I could sit with you at the end of this and not have to worry about any conversations that we're going to have.
Oh, you guys left me in a really good place.
Yeah, I love hearing that. Look, now I don't think we're done. I'm excited for this project myself.
Right.
So what are your next steps? I know you've got a lot of. Well, first of all, let me plug this again, just in terms of, I know our audience are entrepreneurs and inventors, so this is your pay it forward moment. Go to Everyday Ingenuities, get yourself some shape hangers, help someone who's been through the process, buy some units. he is taking his time. Kyle's taking his time to help educate you guys. So if you have an idea out there, you can begin by paying it forward, analyze it, use it, promote it, like it, share it, so that this gentleman here can start the next part of the process, which is we got to go sell it now.
Yeah. And you know what? For people that are out there using it, like, the people that you're talking to, the previous ones that may have been here down the road, and, the newer ones that are considerate, I want to hear feedback.
Yeah, there you go.
Because, it, maybe, I imagine there will be changes, right? Because,
We'll talk about it. We'll put some sort of code on here, maybe, hey, I heard the podcast 20, and you give a 20% discount to anybody on the podcast that
again,
wants to hear.
I'm open to feedback, right?
Yeah.
And suggestions, and, maybe that'll be the next variant of it. Who knows?
Well, look at everyday ingenuities also means that you are constantly growing.
That's right.
And I love the name. That's fantastic. Super name.
Yep.
Super name.
Thanks.
So what are your next steps on the
What do you mean, as far as sales and getting out there? And
I know we've got probably some marketing conversations that are happening. I know, knocking on doors. Like, what is your feeling or gut?
no, I want to start targeting retailers, so I'm going to start going to conventions and conferences, setting up a small booth.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And if I could get a retailer, like, I don't want to go as far as like saying Express, but
Are you going to Chicago Household Goods Show?
mm,
They have an inventor space. I would recommend
Really?
that. Yeah, it's I believe it's going to be in July or August. Or oh no, they're winter, so I'll look it up. But
yeah.
Household Goods Show, I definitely think that you.
So there's one in New York and there's one in Boston.
Okay.
But you know what? If
The biggest one is at the McCormick Center. It's the household. It's a international manufacturing one, but they have a huge innovation space, which isn't expensive. That's what you want to look at. Is the inventor spaces or innovation spaces that are new products. A lot of people in those booths are going to be prototypes, and you're a finished product. So that's your best place to stand out.
right. And my thoughts are, my product will be behind, right? But companies can put their logo on it.
Look at white labeling is a huge part. So
right.
yeah.
So if a company like say Men's Warehouse or something like that, right? Again, hey, why don't you, as a value add, right?
I would have said upsell.
Okay,
value add.
that's fine.
Yeah.
A value add to
Supersize it.
to their products, right?
Right.
If you go in there and you buy a suit and stuff like that, and you're going to put it on a regular hanger.
No, you shouldn't, because guess what? If you're buying a suit once, how often are you going to wear it? Like I used to buy suits every month, like, because that's I just went through them. But if now I'm at the point where I buy a suit because I fluctuate in weight.
Yeah.
I go get a different jacket, or I go get different pants.
That's correct.
But my shirts pretty much stay the same. I don't wear my dress shirts as often as I like.
That's correct.
So it would be good to have that set ready to go. And
And again, it's so targeting them, and eventually maybe reaching out to a Walmart or Target. Walmart is one thing, but I went in and I looked at Walmart. They have a dozen hangers, and
they're
I need somewhere.
I'm not sure they're your buyer.
It's not right. I need a target audience, right? And I have an understanding of who that target audience is. It's people that care how they look.
It's people that care that they look, and they care that their clothing is not wrinkled. It's also that there's people that probably take care of their clothing better than throwing it in a basket or throwing it in the hamper and not caring if it's ever.
Yeah, that's correct. And people care about their time. Again, being able to pull it out of the closet and just go, put it on and go.
Yeah, there's a brand I can't remember the name, but I know that they're a spray wrinkle-free can, like that. I think you have some alliances too. People that are already, like, again,
it's interesting.
If you can if you can shape it and you can do the unwrinkle, I think there's a good collaboration between you guys in there. Or maybe we should take a look at seeing if I can white label something like that for you and have your own little unwrinkle system.
All right, we'll talk.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I like this a lot. So steamers, if you already have it on your hanger, steaming is easy.
Yeah, again, the whole idea behind the hanger is that you don't have to do it. But again, like something comes out of the dryer. Scenario was my wife bought something on Amazon, took it out of the bag, and she wanted to wear it right away.
Yeah.
Right. And she didn't want to pull the ironing board out in the iron, so she put it on the shape hanger and just steamed it.
Yeah.
Right. And again, it kept the shape of it. Right. And again, you could push up against it with the steamer, and she did it in a minute.
Yeah, well, I think that's the biggest part, that these steamers don't have that.
They don't.
Help me understand. So trademark, got it done?
Yeah.
All right. Patents. Did you come to some patent, or did you?
So no, I'm looking at a provisional.
Okay, so we're getting started.
You know, we're getting starting on it,
Okay.
right? I think it's important to have patents, and the IP of it. But the IP,
Yeah.
is sometimes people don't
No, I get it.
follow the IP, right?
Yeah.
So it is what it is, the nature of the world today.
Cool. Anything that you need the audience to know about Shape Hanger, where you want to go, anything that would do? I'm going to look at my little list here. I think we've covered most of it, but just a reflection on your own, or advice that you give anybody for that's looking to do, bring an idea to market or become an entrepreneur in the space.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about those. We talked about the time, checking your ego, right? Finding a problem and then building a solution to that, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And do it, right? I've talked to several
Right.
people and they're like, you know what? I wish I've always done something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Because I was hesitant. I was afraid. It's an investment. It's an investment in time. It's an investment in money. And I just got to my point when I don't want to be 70 years old and regret doing it.
I think that's the best investment.
So, I mean, succeed. I want to
I,
succeed.
I, w- I would
But if I
say,
fail, at least I'm going to sit there and say, you know what? I went and I did it.
I kind of also say, I think more people spent more money in little things along the way. If they had focused on this one thing,
That's right.
they would have walked away with something that they can go and be proud of and be successful with, but they've also learned a lot in that journey. You eliminate so much fear when you could start actually
Yeah.
thinking about adding, like, again, you're already thinking about adding more products to your line,
Yeah.
but overcoming that fear, I always say getting started is the hardest part.
It is, right? And you guys certainly helped with that, right? Coming in and talking to you. I mean, I didn't make up my mind, right? You guys
No.
helped me make up my mind, on my own. My mind wasn't
I
made.
remember we forced you to sign and grab money out of your wallet.
Yeah. Hey, you do this and a couple other things too, is there's tools out there, right? That could help you along the way. I mean, I went out there and I did a lot of research. I used AI, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Fantastic tool.
and I said I was an engineer, but I'm in marketing now.
Yeah.
Right. So I know the whole B2C, business to consumer side of things.
Good.
And we
And we know the direct
where I work,
consumer side, so I
yeah.
think this is a huge direct to consumer side.
I worked with your team, and I got to tell you, I had some opinions. Right. My mindset. And if you remember the record industry, the saying, "In it in a minute to win it."
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So with the song, you have to be in the hook within a minute, or else
Right,
people,
yeah.
lose it. So, and especially because people today, their attention span with all their devices, stuff
Yep.
like that, it's not there. So when it comes to a product and put it on your webpage, you got to get to it
Well,
right away. Right.
Look at the Motown theory is exactly what this 3-second generation is.
That's great.
Motown songs come in hard on the first
that's right.
chord.
Yeah.
They grab your attention. They don't let you turn the radio, and then you stay hooked.
That's right.
That's exactly the new social media attention span.
Again, you have a few seconds to get their
That's it.
attention.
That's it. That's it.
And you have to be hard hitting up front. like
Yeah,
you said.
and look, if you actually are delivering the message to the right people, there's a good commercial out right now about these archaeologists that are finding this server network out in the middle of the desert. Makes no sense. They're not interested in that, right? Like, show your ads to the right people. Target yourself to the people that understand your audience is really the most important.
That's correct. What the personas are, to understanding your target audience, right? And when you go out and you put on a website, you have your SEOs, right? And what keywords are out there that they're looking for, and it's kind of hard to have a keyword of hanger, right? So I necessarily can't rely on that so much.
I mean, look, I'll let Melissa and the marketing team kind of help you with that part. But I look at keywords are the hardest part of marketing.
It most certainly is.
Because it's really not the keywords. It's the long-term phrases that you have invested in to figure out through data that are the right ones. Once you have a small core of those, try and expand those. That is the next challenge. You have a very demonstrable product. And I think your easy message is just give it a try.
That's correct.
Right? Because if you buy a set of 3, you're going to have 3. You go and try it out. And I guarantee you, once you have put 3 out there, you're going to realize you need a few more.
That's right.
And then you'll be able to count. So I don't think I'm changing my whole closet structure, but I know I've got 15 shirts that I need to get products from you.
That's
So
that's correct.
that's my next.
And you said the keywords and stuff like that. Nobody's going to go out there and do a search for hanger or shape hanger. Social media,
Yeah.
right? You got to
You
get
got
out. In front of people.
you have to show people.
You have to say get out in front of them.
Yeah.
So it's awareness.
Yeah,
Right.
the only opportunity,
spreading
like, again,
awareness.
if you're, I think you are getting onto Amazon, but I think the only opportunity you have there is that you're going to look very different than someone that is looking for hangers,
That's correct.
right? So when they see yours and they're going, what is this?
Mhm.
At least you'll have a quick tire kick.
Yeah.
Right. If that tire kick triggers them, they're going to buy it, or they might buy it to try it, like it. I don't think you're going to get returns. So I think that's really where your market's going to open up.
Yeah, but the challenge there is, again, if somebody goes out and does a search on Google, right, and search for hangers, it's where you're placed on that page.
No question.
You got to be up towards the top, right? Nobody's again going to scroll down that far because again, there's a lot of them out there,
Right.
right? So you got to be up near the top, and the same thing with Amazon.
I agree. No question. Again, placement's everything. We usually cheat by adding some ad dollars in there. I don't know if that's where I'd start, but I do know that if I saw a sea of hangers and I saw a shape hanger, I'd be like, what is this?
That's correct.
Right. So being able to stand up. I did have a question. You said that, you had the problem. Well, you said your first step was you went and took everything apart. I would assume that you would have gone to look for, what did you search for when you when you knew that you needed the solution? Did you go online to look for someone who made it?
I knew it didn't exist,
Okay.
honestly.
Okay.
I did know, when I went out there and I searched for a hanger, like for boutiques,
Mm-hmm.
right? Instead of like a
Yeah,
mannequin,
okay.
right? So if you see that, what somebody go to a boutique store and they put a dress on it, or and there's those little mannequins with no arms and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
I knew about that, right? So I went out and I started searching a little bit about that, and what I found was a hanger that kind of had this predefined shape of a girl or of a woman, right?
Yeah.
And but it was rigid. You couldn't change her.
yeah. Okay.
And it was like $80 for one.
$80.
For one.
Okay.
Right.
So there you go. There's your market.
Right.
So look, at the reason I was asking you that, and the reason I wanted to remember it and brought it back up, is because I do think you just proved to yourself those are your keywords, or that's your market audience.
Absolutely.
Boutique, high end, like you're a huge value savings to someone who's going to spend $80 to get that hanger.
That's correct.
You like comparing yourself to like whatever, I don't know what a dozen hangers cost, but the plastic ones, I mean, that's not our target audience.
No.
What we are sit into that high-end fashion clothing, like you said, the boutique hanger is your spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole thing about it is, you put garments and outfits are shaped differently, right?
Yeah.
That fixed, it doesn't fit everything. I mean, we had another one that we're showcasing here, right? This here,
Orange dress,
right?
yeah.
The orange dress, right? So that $80 hanger isn't going to help that at all.
No.
Right?
No.
So it's just useless for it. So again, you could shape this thing, and
That's the best part. You can shape it. It's a hanger that you can shape it any way you want. And look, I love it. I think we have kind of talked at length. Is there anything else that you want to add? Anything else that you feel people need to know about you or your product?
No, I just want to thank you and your team. It's been great working with you.
I appreciate
Right.
that very much.
Um,
Very much. Look, this is one of our. I love this project when it came in. Like I said, I'm so happy now. It's turned into what exactly I know it needs to be.
That's right.
And this is the right product.
I'm happy.
Cool. Well,
I'm excited.
that's the best
Mhm.
part. And if anybody's excited at the end of the process,
Yeah.
which people think is an easy process,
It is not.
it is not.
No.
And to be motivated at the end and be excited is exactly what we want everyone to do.
Some of the process steps were nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Right? And again, that's just something you got to work through.
It's
So,
the only way you get through it.
And your team helped me with that.
Good. Well, I can't thank you enough. I can't show more appreciation for the team. I just want to thank everybody that's watching. Again, these podcasts are really to help everybody that's out there understand that, Kyle is in it now. Go help him support it, but he's also here to help educate everybody that's out there to take those steps, because I do believe we're in the maker economy. Shark Tank didn't blow up because
That's right.
Where we, I think everybody has that entrepreneurial spirit. Everybody knows what e-commerce looks like. Direct to consumer is bridge the gap that where the only time you had was go to, Walmart and Target, like you kind of threw out there. There's so many steps in between that you can wake up in the morning, have an idea that isn't out there for a solution that the market needs, and be your own boss.
That's right. So, hey guys, if you have an idea, and you're ready for it, just make the leap. Go ahead and do it. Dive right in.
Sounds like a Nike commercial.
That's right.
Well, guys, thank you very much for watching. Again, I'm Peter Draculich, co-founder of 52 Launch. This is Kyle
Fraunfelter.
Fraunfelter. I will, I don't know if I'll ever get that. Fraunfelter.
Yeah, you got it.
What's the background?
German.
Okay. I should get it. I'll get it. Fraunfelter. So thank you guys for watching. Like us, follow us, share us. Please, anybody that has got problems with their hangers or needs to shape their clothing better and eliminate ironing, you know where to go now.